So the latest in the string of sexual assault stories, the newest domino to fall, if you will, is Charlie Rose. So the Washington Post here says 8 women say Charlie Rose sexually harassed them with nudity, groping, and lewd calls. Now, so I went through the whole article, and for the first, I don't know, maybe 15 or 20% of the article, I'm reading, and I go, you know, to this point, it just seems like he's sexually awkward, and he's doing stuff he shouldn't do, but it just strikes me that he genuinely thinks it's consensual, but he's, like, weird. And, you know, I can see how he thought, well, the feelings might be mutual, but that's early on in the article. As I got to 50% through, and then as I got all the way through, by the end I was like, no, this is not right. So, why am I saying that? Well, his MO, he did a few things, but one of his MOs was taking advantage of young women that he hired to work for him. So what he would do is he would, like, for example, email them and tell them, oh, hey, by the way, I got this personal job that I need you to do. I need, like, my bookcase to be reorganized, and I need some of this paperwork to be taken care of. I'll pay you $2,500 a week. You know, you come here, a whole wing of the house is yours, you have a car, you go wherever you want, whenever you want. You know, I have a guest house if you want to stay in the guest house. If you're not comfortable, you can bring somebody with you if you want. So that's his pitch. His pitch is, oh, totally, you know, normal. He had a desk and, like, an office in his place, and he's like, oh, come work at the desk, and by the way, I have this stuff that you can do, and it was good money. These women were either in college or straight out of college. And, in other words, the pitch was 100% professional, 100% businessy. Then what would happen is one of these women described that she showed up at his place in Long Island, and she saw the guest house uninhabitable, packed full of boxes, dusty, you know, there was no chance of, like, that was a lie. Like, oh, you can stay in the guest house if you want. No, the whole guest house was totally packed, not possible to be in there. So she said, okay, that's weird, that's a lie. Goes to work. One of the tricks that Charlie would do all the time is he'd go naked, take a shower, leave the door open, call them. If they didn't come, which many times they didn't, he would walk out with his robe open and go talk to them with his junk hanging all over the place. Again, he pitched it as, oh, just come work, you know, it's totally normal. I read the emails were totally businessy. And by the way, all these women, their stories were corroborated by men who told them, yeah, she told me that story at the time in 2005 or whatever. And these are people who were like ex-boyfriends of the women. So the Washington Post went to the extent of getting in contact with the ex-boyfriend of the women who were making these accusations, and the ex-boyfriend was like, yeah, she told me at the time. He's driving with somebody who's supposed to be, you know, working under him. He just grabs her inner thigh while he's driving. She's like, what the fuck? Totally unprovoked. You know, another one was I think some woman was driving. He was in the passenger seat. He just started grabbing her tits. She's like, what? Whoa. And it's just story after story like that, where at first I thought, well, awkwardly propositioning. But no, when you look at the way he lured them in was totally business related, and then he would take advantage of them when they were there. And most importantly, they were fucking underneath him, and that's the part where you go, oh, he knew what he was fucking doing, because the way his show worked, so he had employees that were his own employees, and he had other people who didn't work under him but were coworkers. So, for example, his show on PBS, the one-on-one interviews, which was recorded at Bloomberg Studios, he owned it. It was his own company for that PBS show. So he had people who worked under him for that company. Now, he also worked at CBS on the morning show with Norah O'Donnell and Gail, I forget her last name, and they did not work underneath him. He did not hire them. They worked for CBS. So the report is everybody who worked with, who was an employee of PBS or was an employee of Bloomberg or was an employee of CBS They have nothing negative to say about him. They're like, no, totally fine to me. All the accusations come from women who worked underneath him in his own company. So in other words, all the people who have power, who are equals to me or co-workers to me, who I can't control by virtue of holding their career over their head, they're the ones who see no problem, and he didn't do anything with them because he knows he has no power over them. The women who worked under him are the ones that he took advantage of. So yeah, it's fucking sad, man, that this is... Like, I don't know, does Charlie Rose think, hey, this is normal and this is how it was in the fucking 1980s or whatever, so therefore it's okay today? Does he think it's normal operating procedure? Does he think he's not being predatory? Does he really believe that these feelings are consensual? Because he released a statement and he said, I thought I was pursuing consensual relationships. But look, in my mind, it strikes me as, well, no. The emails that said, hey, come here for business reasons, and then when they're there, you try to do stuff with them, which is not at all business related. You're not in a relationship. It was kind of spontaneous. It was uncalled for. He would, the one woman who worked under him, he would call at like 6 o'clock in the morning or 12 o'clock at night and start prying into her personal life. Who are you dating? Who are you with? He just gets super creepy on the phone with this woman. And then, he like dealt with it for a long time, and then as soon as she opened up to somebody about it, he fired her. So I don't know, you go through the article or you read the article yourself and you tell me what you think, but in my mind, the fact that they were subordinates to him and he only did this with subordinates kind of shows me that I think he knew he was being totally predatory. And the fact that he led them in under false pretenses 100% strikes me as him knowing he was being predatory. Some of the 8 women, have their names are on the record. Others said, I want to remain anonymous for various reasons. But there was another story about a woman who he called over. He always does this creepy thing like, let's go look at the moon or something and sit out by the pool. And then he'd just fucking be naked. He'd have his junk hanging all out in his robe and try to make a move on them. But anyway, look, when it's your subordinate, you cannot do it. You can't do it. You can't do it when it's your subordinate. You just can't. And the fact that he only did it with his subordinate shows me I think he's being predatory, because if he really thought, I'm pursuing consensual relationships here, well, then wouldn't there be at least 1 or 2 or 3 stories of him trying to pursue a consensual relationship in his own mind with somebody who was employed by CBS or PBS or Bloomberg, who he was around all the time? But it didn't happen. It was only with women who worked under him. So I think he knew he was taking advantage of them. And yeah, it's just sad. There's like a real landslide of stories like this coming out now. And look, you have to take each one on a case-by-case basis, of course. You have to look at the facts in each individual case. And you have to adjudicate it one by one, absolutely. But I must say that even if you're willing to write off like half of these, or even 70% of these, 80% of these stories that have been breaking now about sexual assault and sexual misconduct, I have to say I was really naive. I was, because I didn't expect it to be this widespread and this rampant. And again, like I said, even if you write off half of them or more than that, it just turns out that it looks to me like, as a general rule, dudes that have power and are kind of, I guess, old school in a way you could say, though that sounds almost like I'm giving them a pass. I'm not. They're really fucking handsy, and they're really like, they really wield their power in ways that should obviously be considered, at the very least, unethical. In some cases, maybe illegal. So I would have never guessed with Charlie Rose. Like, he strikes me, as somebody asked me on Twitter, because I mentioned, I was like, he strikes me as the last guy who would do something like this. Somebody was like, why? I said, I don't know, he just looks like an asexual guy who, like, dreams about journalism in his sleep. No. There you have it, Charlie Rose, next domino to fall.